Today's guest is Darren Kimura, President and CEO of Energy Industries, LLC, a Hawaii-based energy efficiency company. In 2000, he was recognized in the Pacific Business News 40 Under 40, and in 2002 as SBA Young Entrepreneur of the Year. So Darren, you started this company at 20 years old. How did you get this idea?
Well, actually, to be quite honest, it really was my dad's idea. My dad has been a contractor on the Big Island where I'm from for a number of years. And as a contractor, he was building all these facilities, but noticing that we weren't matching our building of new facilities with the building of power plants, for example. So he kind of thought at some point we would run out of power and we would be then in an energy crisis, if you will. So way back when I was in college, he actually came to me with the concept and said, hey, this is going to be a problem one day. Why don't you take a look at this and study this field? And I said, well, at that time, I said, yeah, that sounds great. So basically, over the summer, studied it, picked it up, began selling a few projects doing energy efficiency work. And that's what really kind of led to Energy Industries as it is today.
Is your background engineering?
Yes. Well, it's actually, I guess if you will, a dual background in business and engineering.
Okay, so you were able to pick that up. Because I know if my dad told me, okay, why don't you go learn about energy and so on, I'd be like, what?
Right. Yeah, my dad's an electrical contractor. So for one thing, I grew up, at the very young age, kind of shadowing him, cleaning up after his electricians went into a location and began asking questions like, what does this do? What's that wire do? And eventually, I guess that kind of assimilated into everything else.
So what made you do this business instead of working with your dad in his business?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think it really kind of started off really trying to help my dad grow his business. But I think as we went along, we found that our goals were not aligned at that time. Essentially, he was in a different stage of his life than I was. And ultimately, I think at that time, I really wanted to just prove that I could really make a name for myself and not so much carry on his legacy. So that's what ultimately led me to do this on my own.
So did he mentor you at the beginning of the building of your business? Because you're fairly young.
Yeah, he did to a certain extent. I think both my mom and my dad did a lot of mentorship. My mom actually is his accountant or his controller. And that helped me understand the books, things like setting up QuickBooks, if you will. And I had no idea at that time what it was to do a credit and a debit and what a general ledger was, even after having gone through the university. So that really helped me a lot on the administrative side. And of course, my dad did with the technical side. And all the rest just kind of fell into place. At the time we started our business, the utility programs were beginning to come out and they were beginning to incentivize the work we did. So we actually learned as they learned. So we actually had good mentorship going back and forth with the utilities.
So you started the company at 20. Did you hire any employees at that time?
No, actually at that time, we were really acting as an owner's rep. So we would work for the owner and then bring in a contractor to do the work for the owner. So no employees at that early stage.
So when you took that break to go to Portland State University, you were your efforts. So did the company just kind of stop until you finished?
Well, actually, that's a really interesting question because what we were able to do at that time, we actually got a local Hawaii fax number, a local Hawaii cell phone, and a pager number. And when I was at PSU, I was still actually doing consulting for companies in Hawaii without actually having them known that I was not in state. And what I would do is I would, hope my parents aren't listening, but cut school for a couple of weeks, come back to Hawaii, do the consulting work, and then leave again.
Oh, so your parents didn't even know you were back in town?
Yes, for the most part, yeah, they did not really know that I was in town.
Would they care now?
Probably. But, for the most part, I mean, it really is an attribute to, I guess, communications and the development of it. You could be intrastate, working in Portland, yet, working for Hawaii businesses and helping them do their thing while learning about how those businesses out there in Oregon were operating. And at that time, it was really unique because I got to travel to Sacramento, learn down there, and our customers still thought I was in state, just on a different island.
So what benefits were you able to bring from Portland and from the mainland here to Hawaii?
Well, one of the very first things was we actually were able to embrace a program called the EPA Energy Star program very early on when it first came out, really in 1994. So I actually got trained in Portland and then brought that back to Hawaii eventually and have been a big advocate of that program ever since. But not only just that, it's really the exposure in general to the markets. Portland in itself is a very green state, very energy efficient, has adopted a lot of energy codes which are very progressive. So that kind of early beginnings really helped to make our company grow in the right directions early on when Hawaii was still only learning about energy efficiency.
At that time, were there other companies that were doing this energy efficiency, consulting, advising, or even providing this service?
There were a lot of segmented companies. There were companies which were doing just lighting retrofits, or companies which were doing just mechanical retrofits or upgrades or efficient designs. What we were able to do is really put it all under one roof, and thereby giving our customers a one-stop shop, really kind of like a one invoice a situation, whereas, they can trust one person to know that it's going to be executed all the way through from, again, the three principles which we built our company from the design to the installation and then to the long-term maintenance.
So you weren't worried about competition when you came back home. It was just a matter of coming back home, being in the islands.
I think at that time, I obviously always worry about competition, but I think at that time I was more worried about being young in Hawaii and really not having a very good track record, or any track record for that matter, and finding, lenders or banks or supporters or customers to even trust you at that time. And I think that's a big challenge for any young person doing business here in Hawaii.